Hello and welcome back to another episode of Full Tank Truck Talk, where we are talking about the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. It's been a while. I'm Phil Eastman, the host of the Full Tank with Phil podcast, where we do the Cup Series breakdown every week. And it's been quite a bit since we were able to hop on here and talk trucks. Lime Rock was our last episode, and then they had a long break in the Truck Series schedule. And then when they came back to run IRP, I was actually on vacation. So it's been a little bit, and I'm excited to get back to it. I will do my best to try to keep things moving along, but I just feel like I got so much to talk about. And this race coming up at Watkins Glen is definitely going to be one that have a lot of people tuning in. So very excited about it. But first, I mean, did we miss anything while we were gone? Quite a bit of stuff. We've got some silly season stuff to talk about, and it's like super intriguing. So the first thing that we missed while we were out, and this happened last week, was Stuart Friesen got into a horrific dirt racing accident, and just the other day got home. He was in the hospital for days, lots of different injuries. I think a hip was one of the biggest things that he had, that caused a lot of problems for him, but he's back. Fact of the matter is, though, he is out for the year, that 52 truck, but he just got into victory lane. He will not be able to race in the playoffs. And that is just devastating for that team. It's got to be devastating for Stuart Friesen because it just, I don't know, it was a while since he had won last, and now you're finally locked into the playoffs and you don't get to compete. I think that's going to send some shockwaves through the NASCAR garages in all series, what these drivers are doing. I know there's been a very long leash, especially in the Cup Series, with some of these guys going out and doing these things in their free time. But this is the type of thing that is like nightmares are made of for team owners. Excuse me. Luckily, Stewart, part of the ownership in that team, but still, it doesn't take away the fact that they have to be absolutely devastated. So Stuart Friesen out for the year. 52 trucks going to be run by a Cup Series driver. We'll get to that in just a second at Watkins Glen. But then another big piece of news comes down, and we've got news along with rumors, which is Caden Honeycutt is out at Nice. And this immediately was super confusing when you heard this news because that 45 truck has been decent. We've talked about Caden Honeycutt almost every week on this show because he falls into the range of like worth gambling on most tracks. And he had been doing good things, fighting for playoff contention. Definitely someone who, is a factor when we are talking about what's going to happen coming up in these playoffs. And then he's just out. And it's very strange. Why is he out? Did he do anything wrong? And the rumors are saying he signed a contract with a competitor, so they got out of the contract immediately, which a lot to unpack there because we've seen drivers in the Cup Series, for example, know that they're out at the end of the year, but they still race through the end of the season. We've seen drivers make the playoffs and do that. Harrison Burton last year was out, won his way into the playoffs, moved on, right? But they didn't boot him out of the ride. They were the ones booting him out of the ride, and he still got to, fulfill the contract. So very strange situation that they just automatically say, no, we don't want a playoff contending driver. Seems to me like there has to be some larger powers there dictating that. And the rumors are that he's either going to Toyota to fill a Tricon spot, or maybe Dodge is claiming their first driver in the Truck Series because Dodge Ram is rumored. I don't know if it's a fact or not, but Dodge Ram sniffing around the Truck Series, and maybe they hired Caden Honeycutt, and that pissed off the Nice group. So who knows? We're still confused as to what's going on there, but he will be, and those two pieces of silly season news connect each other because he's racing in the O2 at Watkins Glen, but starting Richmond, Caden Honeycutt will be filling in for Stuart Friesen in the 52 truck for the rest of the year. So that kind of lends itself to be like, well, maybe it's a Toyota alliance, what they have going on. But in any case, a big piece of news because the 52 truck is in by itself, and then Honeycutt, was racing for points, and with Stuart Friesen not automatically in, makes him feel a little bit more safe in the points. So, very, very, a lot of news. We don't really get this kind of stuff in the Truck Series, but super interesting to see this play out for this particular driver who's kind of like on the upswing of his career, definitely making waves here in this midweek silly season type content. So it all kind of bubbles up then to what we're going to see this week because we have an absolutely stacked entry list this week. So I mentioned Friesen out, Honeycutt driving the 2 truck. Let's just run through the names here. I have it pulled up in front of me. So we got Sawalich running the 1 Tricon truck, which isn't necessarily different. Kyle Busch in the 07. Sammy Smith in the 7, both Spire trucks. We've got, let's see, here's where it gets good. Ross Chastain in the 44 Nice. Well, who's filling in for Caden Honeycutt in the vacated 45? Connor Zilich. And so he's going to be a factor. We're going to talk about him at length. Who's filling in the 52 Stuart Friesen truck? Christopher Bell jumping down from the Cup Series. The 66 Thor Sport truck is back at Watkins Glen. That's going to be run by Chris Buescher. Ever heard of him? Yeah, he won the Cup Series race last year at Watkins Glen. Brent Cruz is back, and he's driving the 70 truck, which is Brent Cruz Racing. It's owned by, it's got his name on it, but I think he's too young to actually own the team, so they figure something out there. But Brent Cruz, who a lot of folks speculate is on the fast track at Toyota to potentially be a JGR driver in the Cup Series down the road. He's in this race as well. So a lot of big names coming into this race. And that's why I think a lot of people are going to be locked in Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock at Watkins Glen. We'll have this Truck Series race. So a lot of good stuff. Now, what does that mean for our bets? It's just the board is wonky, just completely out of whack. So if you're looking at it from a top-down perspective, Connor Zilich being in this race is flipping everything on its head. And then you've got this Cup Series group of drivers that are in here as well. So I'm going to talk through my mindset here. I'm not saying this is right, this is wrong, but this is the way that I plan on playing it. All right. So Connor Zilich is minus 125 to win this race. I'm sorry. Like, I understand that he's talented and, he very well could go out, win the pole, win the race easily, just kind of flaunting his road course prowess. But it's not something that I want to pay for. I don't want to pay the amount of money that I would need to pay to feel like you're getting something back at minus 125. That's crazy to me. A driver that has not had that many, I mean, he's got one career road course start, right? Happened at Coda. And that's, I don't know. He hit the pole and missed the turn right away, fought his way back for 4th place finish. And that kind of shocks some folks like, wow, he really is that good. But the fact remains, one mistake and he's out of the race, right? One turn goes wrong, as we saw at Coda. And so that's what scares me. I with such a small sample size, one race, a driver who's racing really well in the Xfinity car to jump down to trucks kind of randomly here in a 45 truck, which, let's be honest, it's not like Caden Honeycutt has been just dominating folks. He's raced strong, but not as well as I wanted him to race at the beginning of the year. So it's just tough for me to get behind that from an outright perspective. The other thing is we don't have, I mentioned a small sample size for him, one race. We don't have a lot of data to pull from, right? They have not been to Watkins Glen in like 5 or 4 years. I think 2021 was the last time they were here. And they don't road race very often. We had Lime Rock a couple weeks ago. We had Coda last year, Mid-Ohio the year before that with Coda looped in there. But it's a very small amount of information to pull from, which makes it very hard to try to handicap. So to me, it's like, all right, let's breathe all this in and let's level set here. Okay. I am refusing to get caught up in the chaos that the sports books are putting in front of us. So where does that lead me to start things off for an outright? I'm sorry to do this, but it's Heim time. Corey Heim is 4-1 on Caesars to win this race. Anytime you can get Corey Heim 4-1 to win at any place is enormous. So Connor Zilic has such fear into the eyes of these sports books, and maybe it turns out to be rightfully so, right? They know better than us. But if we're gambling, we're taking a shot here. Here's the shot. Okay. Corey Heim is an absolute monster. And I highly doubt he pays attention to these odds, but he should be disrespected by this. 4-1 on Caesars. He has 6 career road course starts. First couple in the 51 truck, didn't go his way. But let's just go to the last 3. The last 3 road course races, he has won all 3. We go to Lime Rock just a few weeks ago, Coda in 2024, we talked about, where he raced against Connor Zilic and Zilic blew the first turn, and then Mid-Ohio in 2023. And what's interesting here is it's not like he's just been good like this year, right? Obviously he's dominant this year, but these are 1 race per year type stats. And over that span, 2023 all the way to 2025, he's won every road course that they've been on. So then you go back in the 51 truck at Mid-Ohio in 2022, where he's racing for Kyle Busch Motorsports. He put the car or the truck on the pole. He had transmission issue. So it could have been even more crazy of a resume than what we have here for Corey Heim. So the fact is, if I could get Corey Heim at 4-1 on a road course, I'm taking it. I don't care if it's SVG in the truck. I'm going to get Corey Heim at a number like this because it just makes sense to me. I've seen it with my eyes. I don't want to bet against him. With Connor Zilic, we have a feeling we know what we're going to get, but there's always that chance that this young driver can make a mistake. And we got Corey Heim, the veteran of the series now, waiting in the wings to pounce on it, as we saw at Coda. So that's where we got to start. And, we look at some of these other Cup Series drivers dropping down, right? I'm going to talk about them in various ways. Okay. But I do feel like if it's not Connor Zilic that is going to win this race, it's going to be Corey Heim. Now I'll mention maybe a couple things in the finish line segment, but that it really feels like a 2-horse race to win the race. Now, there are some other ways to have some fun though in this one, and we'll have a top 5 frenzy, we'll call it here. Okay. Let's talk about Kyle Busch. He's -140, top 5. I have not placed this bet just yet, but because -140 is a little juiced, but Kyle Busch, it feels like we're disrespecting him a little bit, not putting him in that like category. He's kind of an afterthought when he races down in the Truck Series, which just a year ago was like unfathomable. But KFB has raced in the Truck Series 3 times. I was using a stat tracker to go back the last 10 races that they've been on road courses, and Busch has been in 3 of those races. He's 3 for 3, finishing inside the top 5. All right, he finished second at Coda in 2023. He won at Sonoma in 2022, and he also finished third at Coda in 2022. So it's been a little while since he's raced, a couple years on a Truck Series road course race. But if it's not him, you got Heim, Zilic, and then who, right? We're going to talk about a list of guys that it could be, but Kyle Busch driving the 07, it's very possible. So -140 seems like a disrespected number to me. So like I said, I haven't played it just yet, but I needed to talk about Kyle Busch in some way. Now let's go to a fellow Cup Series driver in Ross Chastain. This is a +175 number, top 5 on ESPN bet. He also, in the last 10 road course races in the trucks, has raced 3 times. He also is 3 for 3, finishing inside the top 5. He finished 5th at COTA last year, 5th at COTA in 2023, where he started on the pole, by the way. And in 2022 Sonoma, he finished 4th. All of those starts were in Nice equipment. That's where he is this time around. You know who else is in Nice equipment, as we called out? Connor Zilic. So you got to figure there's, they're going to be working together and practice and qualifying and during the race. He's going to be there to support Connor and probably, be racing with him. So plus 175 is by far the best number. You can see much shorter numbers for Chastain finishing inside the top 5. So again, 3 for 3. Same with Kyle Busch finishing inside the top 5. Something's got to give here, right? There's too many cooks in the kitchen. So it's about finding the right number on a driver. And that's why I haven't placed the Kyle Busch bet yet. It's just because that number is a little bit juiced. Some of these numbers we're going to talk about are outrageous and you almost have to. So plus 175, that's a number that I would probably put a unit on and, go from there. So Chastain, just wanted to call out his road course stats here. It's a good number. I'm in on the top 5 here for Chastain. And now, this is where the conversation for me kind of shifts a little bit because there's so much talk about all these Cup Series drivers and Connor Zilic and just this outside noise when we've got Truck Series regulars who are very, very good. And we are getting astronomical numbers on them to finish inside the top 5. So again, not saying that this is a given, but we have to look at the information that was presented to us and make educated decisions. And the first place we're going to start here, I got 2 of them. Ty Majeski, plus 550 for a top 5 on ESPN. That is outrageous. It's outrageous. Okay. You could make an argument. I know that we think of Ty Majeski as that like short track guy. You could make an argument that he's a road course guy. He finished 2 weeks ago, 2nd at Lime Rock. Okay. 3rd at COTA in 2024, 7th at Mid Ohio in 23, 3rd at COTA in 2023. He's got 4 top 3 finishes in his last 7 starts on a road course. 4 top 3s. Okay. I'm not even asking him to finish in the top 3. I'm giving him 2 extra spots here. Plus 550. That's craziness. It really is insane. I'm going to, now I have to go look just to see what we're calling fair odds here for Ty Majeski to finish inside the top 5. And Win the Race has him fair for a top 5 at plus 224. Come on, baby. Come on. Double that. You don't see that kind of value, perceived value from the simulations on a week-to-week basis. So it's because the books are shook because of these Cup Series guys. And, sometimes you just got to cut through the noise and say, hey, what hits? A Truck Series regular who's just good on road courses. And that's what we got here. So Ty Majeski plus 550. I love it. That is one that you can throw less than a unit on. And that's what I did. Less than a unit on Ty Majeski. And you could be a little bit more conservative and win some money if it does hit. The last placement bet that I'm going to talk about, and you'll notice that some of these guys we're talking about, it's where I'm going to go in the head-to-head section. I'm kind of just like falling in love with certain drivers and their resumes. Well, this next one might shock some people, might feel a little icky, but Ben Rhodes for a top 5 plus 850. Plus 850. He's like 6-1 on some books. And looking on Win the Race, where do we have it for a top 5? Let's see. Where do we have him here? Ben Rhodes. Well, yeah, they've got him. Okay, they've got him pretty high, much higher than 8-1. So I'm sorry about that, but 8-1, 850-1 for a top 5 on Ben Rhodes. Let's talk about his resume because he's someone that's had a weird season. I understand that. My hand is up. I've been following the Truck Series just like you have. I know what we're getting with Ben Rhodes on a week-to-week basis, but it's just weird. Road courses for Ben Rhodes, he stood out. He's got, in his last 10 starts, a win, 4 top 5s, and 7 top 10s. 4 straight top 10 finishes for Ben Rhodes on road courses. Going back to 2 weeks ago, or 2 races ago, rather, at Lime Rock, where he finished 4th. So this bet hit. 7th before that, 5th before that, and then 10th, 4 races back. So 4 straight top 10s. I understand that we need to get to the top 5 for it to hit. He's done it 2 out of those 4 times. I also understand that the field hasn't been as stacked on some of those races, but a couple of those guys, were in that race. Chastain, Busch, when you go back 4 races, they've been flirting around in these races, as well as some of the road course ringers. So the point I'm trying to make here is that Ben Rhodes is very much a factor when we get to road courses. That's how it is. So at 850, I'm going to sprinkle maybe a quarter unit on this and be happy with it. And if it hits, it's like, wow, what a nice surprise, because this number to me is out of whack. Ben Rhodes is a strong road course driver. He did it at Lime Rock in this season, a season that he's been dog shit, to be quite honest with you, fighting for a playoff spot. So a road course is just what the doctor ordered for Ben Rhodes. I'll tell you that. So that's where we end with the placement picks, but we're going to still talk about him with some of these head-to-heads as we move to the matchups here. Let's stick right with Ben Rhodes, and it's because of that consistency that I like him minus 115 over Daniel Hemric. Daniel Hemric, I was talking a lot about him when we went to Lime Rock. He really disappointed me. Daniel Hemric, he's just okay. He didn't get it done the way I thought. He started 11th, finished 9th, just an okay. Well, who beat him? Ben Rhodes beat him. Ben Rhodes finished 4th at Lime Rock after starting 19th. That's the other thing about Ben Rhodes. You don't need a good starting position for the 99 to finish well in a road course. Ben Rhodes has done a lot of passing on road courses, and I love that. So here we go. Someone that has been to Watkins Glen in a truck. Can't say the same about Daniel Hemric. So Hemric to me is, a little bit of a, what have you done for me lately? Kind of a strange part of the season. And a lot of these breaks aren't helping guys like that trying to get back into it, get playoff ready. So I like this minus 115. I think this goes away after practice and qualifying. And if it did stay up, likely Hemric would be a bigger favorite because he qualifies better, and Ben Rhodes is able to overcome that. So keep your eyes on this on Caesars minus 115. I like Ben Rhodes over Daniel Hemric. Now let's go to another driver we just talked about, and it's Ty Majeski, and I have that written wrong. Let me edit that. It's not minus 1100. It's minus 115 over Sammy Smith. And it's, again, a situation where we have a regular driver, Sammy Smith, coming down. This is on DraftKings, coming down running the 7 Spire truck. That's fine. 0 starts in the last 10 races on road courses in a truck for Sammy Smith. We have nothing to base this off of for him. If you're going to take Sammy Smith, I don't understand, really what we're doing. You're looking at, apples to oranges. We know, as I just documented, Majeski is very damn good. Second at Lime Rock just a couple races ago. Sammy Smith's going to have an uphill battle if he wants to beat Ty Majeski. The only way Majeski loses this matchup and loses that top 5 bet is if Majeski beats himself, which we've seen a lot over his career. But if things go to plan for that team, Majeski wins this matchup in my mind, no doubt. So I talked about him at length. I talked about Rhodes at length. I won't bother us anymore about it. But those 2 matchups I really love, of Truck Series regulars taking on, Hemric, who's getting back into the trucks, and Sammy Smith, who's a guy dropping down and just filling in. The last one, if you want to talk about some of these Cup Series drivers, how do we make some money off them? I don't trust the 66 truck. I don't trust the 52 truck to go out and win the race. If Chris Bell looks amazing in practice and qualifying, he's getting way more out of that truck than Stuart Friesen did. Great. We can adjust for that if the books open back up for maybe an outright at that point. But what I will say is that I do trust the 52 truck versus the 66 every week. And Christopher Bell, I just think, is a better road course driver at this point in his career than Chris Buescher in the Cup Series. If this was a matchup in the Cup Series, I would take Chris Bell. And so he's in a better truck, a full-time truck, a truck that's got a lot of emotion now attached to it. And Chris Bell runs very well at Watkins Glen. I understand Buescher won the race from 24th last year in the Cup Series, but this is a situation with the 52 truck being a consistent full-time truck compared to the 66, which is just like jumping in, people randomly getting rides in that 66 truck. Chris Bell, I just think, is a better road course driver. So I can't trust either of these guys, for a top 5, for a top 3, or a win. But to go head to head against each other, I like that play better. That's just me personally. And I'm going with Bell, -120. Eyes will be glued to practice and qualifying on Friday to see how these guys both look. But ahead of time, midweek, this is the bet that I like. So that's going to be it for the ones that I had pulled out there. Just kind of mentioning one name. Sometimes I talk about some leans here at the end. There's one name that I can't get out of my head, and it's Lane Riggs. Okay. At IRP, I was on vacation on that Friday night. I threw one bet in. It was Lane Riggs to win. But I do think back to Lime Rock, and I was against Lane Riggs at Lime Rock. Okay. And for a while, it did not work out. He looked very good in that race. He qualified third. He was running really well. And he got into some trouble at some point, ends up finishing 13th, which was a relief to me because I think I had him head to head against somebody. But the whole time I'm like, when did Lane Riggs get really good at road course racing? In the last 2 road course races, he qualified 8th and 3rd. He did not get good finishes in those 2 races, but he looked phenomenal at Lime Rock. So I made a point to say earlier, if it's not going to be Zilich, I really think it's going to be Heim. There's a part of me, and maybe if you're listening to this and you have a feeling about this one way or the other, you let me know. There's a part of me that wants to put a little something down on Lane Riggs to win this race as well. I can't put my finger on it. I have no stats to back that up. It's just like what we saw at Lime Rock was like, whoa, where did he come from? Kind of deal. And he didn't get the finish that he deserves. So it all kind of blends away when you're looking at the stats on paper. So Lane Riggs, let me know what you think if he's somebody that stands out to you as well. So a lot coming at you, drinking from a fire hose, it feels like, absorbing this content because we had a lot to catch up on. But I'm happy to be back. Really looking forward to the trucks at Watkins Glen, this stacked field. And I hope everyone out there makes some money, enjoys the race, and has a great race weekend in Watkins Glen. We'll see you next time.